Welcome to the Takeaway Podcast, where we cover the NBA and NFL every single Wednesday, bringing you the most up-to-date news across both leagues for both sports nerds and newcomers alike. I am your host, Jihan Lee, and today we will be covering the Tagovailoa controversy, Jalen Hurts stepping into Stardom, the Trey injury alongside the Justin Herbert injury, and the Colts Disaster. So, before we start, I want to be talking about the game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Miami Dolphins. Going in initially, I believe that my pick was the Baltimore Ravens to win this game, just because they're a more proven team. You have Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews at defense, with the secondary that is with proven players. You have Chuck Clark, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. You have a team that has been to the playoffs, have a proven quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and I guess they have had more time together as a team compared to the Miami Dolphins, who you're bringing in, Tyreek Hill, you're bringing in a brand new head coach, and I just saw the Baltimore Ravens just being the better team overall. But if we break down this game, but specifically Tua Tagovailoa, he went 36 of 50, which is a 72% completion rate, threw for 469 yards with 6 touchdowns to 2 interceptions with an 124.1 QBR. And what's the biggest thing is they had 28 points in the final quarter of this game, winning 42-38. I guess the biggest thing, the reason why I say controversy for Tua is you have two people now after this game has come out. On one hand, people are saying that, all those doubters for Tua over his past, couple of seasons, this is what we were looking for. This is the star that we saw, and this is his statement game. To really come out and be a Pro Bowler, a star in this league. And the other hand is people are saying that this is a fluke game. It's not him. It's his receivers. Any quarterback could have made those throws. They were way too open and stuff, and arguments like that. Where I stand in this conversation is somewhere towards the middle, but more leaning on the side that Tua is a good quarterback. Now, going into the season, across many platforms, if you were to rank the quarterbacks in the AFC, the top tier and the mid tier, the low tier were pretty much agreed upon on where each quarterback was ranked. Obviously, there was some fluctuations in where certain quarterbacks would rank, especially with Russell Wilson missing a lot of last season. But for the most part, the consensus was that these quarterbacks were top tier, these quarterbacks were mid tier, and these quarterbacks were in the bottom tier. Tua, on the other hand, was probably the quarterback that had the biggest discrepancy on where he was placed on that ranking. Some people had him in the complete bottom, some people had him in the middle, and I don't think I saw anyone that had him in that top echelon with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, those cats. The reason why I bring this up is after you see this week 2 game, where does that ranking change? I believe for everyone, Tua has gone up that list, whether it's from the bottom tier up to the mid tier or from the mid tier to the top tier, whatever the case may be, you have moved Tua up that list. The thing that I would have to say is we don't want to overreact to one game. It's only been week 2. We've only seen 2 games from Tua and this offense together. And it's really, really hard to say confidently whether, not even just the quarterback position, but any player, if we just watch 1 game or 2 games, that we can definitively say this guy is a star or this guy is not. And as fans, we have to not overreact to these games. However, a lot of major media will overreact to these kind of things. Tua is the next big star. Tua is the next Tom Brady. Whatever the case may be, people will overreact because that warrants clicks, that warrants attention, that warrants views. However, we need to come back to reality and see that Tua is not in that top echelon of players. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. If you want to throw in Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson to that conversation as well, I'm totally agreeing with you in that sense. However, Tua is not with that top tier. And the reason I say that is Tua is now in a position where the Miami Dolphins organization has invested the entire team, the entire offense around building around Tua. They have pushed their chips towards the middle and are building this team around their young quarterback. And he has weapons. He has receivers, tight ends, running backs around him that can make plays on their own so that he does not have to bear that load entirely by himself. Now, what does that mean? These receivers will get open. These tight ends will get open. These running backs will break holes for big runs, and that'll take away from Tua in a lot of people's view because they're making the plays, they're making the carries, they're getting the touchdowns, they're getting open. But Tua is still making those throws. He is still able to, be at a caliber where he is still able to execute the game plan. And that is still something that needs to be commended. What we need to point out, especially for this game, is the amazing games from not only Tyreek Hill but Jalen Waddle as well. Both coming out of this game with 11 receptions each. Tyreek Hill with 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle finishing the game with 171 yards with 2 touchdowns as well, including the game-winning touchdown. The thing is that you have two dynamic receivers in Hill and Waddle who can beat anybody with speed, but not only that, but can run after the catch and gain 10, 15, 20 yards afterwards. And so, yes, Tua is throwing amazing balls, as we saw with Gesicki in the back of the end zone, with Waddle in the game-winning touchdown. But these receivers are getting open so that Tua has an easier time making those throws. That doesn't take away from the talent that Tua has, but it also, you have to give credit to the receivers that are there. Now, what does that mean? Now, we can't say, a lot of people argue that means that Tua is not a great quarterback. He may not be a Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, whatever it may be, but he is still a good quarterback that is running this offense efficiently and like a well-oiled machine. One thing that I do want to say before I go ahead and make my, conclusion on Tua is I want to break down the big touchdowns that we saw that really brought this Miami team back into the game. And the first one I want to talk about is the Tyreek Hill, his first touchdown. Now, he was against the corner, and it was a blown coverage, not with the corner, but with a safety that should have been helping. And that safety was Kyle Hamilton. And if you see the full play on a 22 view, you'll see that Kyle Hamilton immediately turns inside and looks at the other receivers, and so then Tyreek Hill has one-on-one with the corner. And by the time that Tyreek Hill is even, he's already gone with the speed, and Tua is able to throw that right into Tyreek Hill's hand. A lot of people may argue that that ball is short or whatever they may be, but they still got the touchdown, and we can't dispute that. We can argue as much as we want that that ball was short, it should have been intercepted, or it should have been deflected, whatever the case may be, but the result is that they got a touchdown out of that play. Now, a couple plays later, we have Hill on the left side, and he is one-on-one again, no safety help again. Now, it wasn't a blown coverage, but it was just, there was no safety over Hill to help the corner in that one-on-one situation, and that was just easy pickings for Tyreek Hill. He's just able to run past with his speed, and this just another easy touchdown for the Dolphins. Now, another one that I want to point out before I make my final conclusion is the game-winning touchdown to Jalen Waddle. That was an amazing jump ball throw from Tua, able to feel the pressure in the pocket, seeing where he can throw to where only Waddle can get it, and he's able to throw that up right in that specific point where Jalen Waddle is able to jump up, catch it, and come down with the ball. It was a perfect throw for that situation. They're able to come out with a win, a huge win for them. And it really is a testament to Coach McDaniels and his play calling and the way that he is able to run this offense. And they are able to come away going into week 3 with a ton of confidence, seeing that they are able to execute their offense efficiently. And hopefully we can see them execute the offense throughout 4 quarters instead of just the final fourth. I think they should be able to be more confident in taking those longer shots with Hill, with Waddle, with Tua throwing the ball. I think we will be able to see that in week 3, which is where I want to make my conclusion. In week 3, they're going to be playing the Buffalo Bills, who in my opinion are going to be the Super Bowl champs this season. The reason why I think this game is so important is in week 2, Tua has come out with a statement game. I don't think anyone can dispute that. But I think that when we're going into this week 3 game, at least from my perspective, we need to see more from Tua. Not in production, but consistency. I want to see him produce throughout an entire season before I make my decision on where I want to place him in that ranking of quarterbacks. I don't want to just use 1 game or 2 games or 3 games or whatever that sample size may be, but I think a full season is enough for us to say this is a good enough sample size and we're able to make our decision on where we want to place Tua. Now, what am I looking for in this week 3 game? Obviously, if they can win the game, that would be amazing. But the biggest thing that I want to look for is just a great performance out of Tua. I don't want him. I'm not looking for 500 yards with 7 touchdowns to up his game. To one up his game in week 2. But I just wanted him to be able to run this offense efficiently, have the game be close with Buffalo, because it'll have not only him but the team to be more confident going forward that we were able to compete with a Super Bowl team. Not that, in my opinion at least, that they'll be Super Bowl winners, but that they're in that conversation to make the playoffs, to be competitive in this AFC. And I really just want to see Tua be more confident, more comfortable in this offense, and able to execute throughout week 3. I just want to, really see him take on the challenge of going up against this Buffalo defense and just show his talent, his IQ, his arm through that week 3 game, and just show that he is ready for this. He is ready. He has been ready, and he is ready to take on the stage and the responsibility of being a star quarterback in this league. And hopefully we can see a win from him or just a great game from him. But I think it's going to be a shootout between Josh Allen and Tua, and hopefully we'll be able to see a great defensive play and offensive play on both sides of the ball. Now we're going to be moving on to talking about another Alabama quarterback, and that is none other than Jalen Hurts. Now, they are coming off their second win of the season in week 2 as well. They were able to beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-7. Now, Jalen Hurts is coming out of this performance with 26 of 31 passing, with an 83.87% completion rate, throwing for 333 yards, with 1 passing touchdown, 2 on the ground, 1 interception, and 1 fumble, with a QBR of 108.7. Now, this Vikings team, who I think many people, after watching week 1, are putting them in that playoff conversation, I think a lot of people will say that this is a huge statement win or statement game from Jalen Hurts. However, although it may be a good game, which I will not dispute, I don't know if I can go as far as saying that it is a statement game. Um, Jalen Hurts looked amazing in that first half, where he was able to run that offense efficiently and they were able to get downfield and score points. But if we saw later on in the game, they weren't able to score at all against this defense, which is why I want to come away with this game and saying it's not a statement game, at least for Jalen Hurts. However, I gotta say that this is a great confidence win for this team, and I think they can. If Dak Prescott is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, I think that the Eagles will come away with this division relatively easily. Now, this offense looks really great alongside Dallas Goedert, who came away with the game with 5 receptions for 82 yards, Devonta Smith with 7 receptions, 80 yards, and A.J. Brown with 5 receptions, 69 yards, where the ball was able to be oh my goodness, the ball was able to be distributed to a variety of receivers. I think that, at least in my opinion, for Jalen Hurts, he started off the game really, really strong, but going into later on into the game, it looked like he was struggling a bit, at least trying to figure out exactly how to get that same production as he did early on in the game. Now that is a testament to the defensive coordinator on the Vikings and able to make those adjustments, but it also shows, the offensive coordinator, at least on the Philadelphia Eagles side, where they weren't able to counter adapt and make more plays down the stretch. However, I do think that this Philadelphia Eagles defense, this game is a statement game for them, where they were able to hold Minnesota Vikings to 7 points. I mean, we saw Justin Jefferson tear it up in week 1, and to able to hold him to 1 reception for 7 yards is amazing, and that is a huge shout out to Darius Slay, who could have come away with a lot more interceptions than he ended up with. But just this defense looks really, really strong, and this Eagles team is kind of playing like a very old school kind of game, where it's very defensive, at least for at least on the defensive side of the ball, where they have a very strong, stout defensive unit alongside a ground game that will chew down that clock, and they're able to have short passes with A.J. Brown, and you have a deep threat in Devonta Smith, and a great tight end in Goddard, and a running quarterback in Jalen Hurts, where they're able to have options on the ground as well. I just think that Jalen Hurts really needs to, before we can throw him up uh, in that conversation of a franchise quarterback, which I think is still in the air for the Eagles, is he really needs to come out with a statement game where we see him from start to finish really make an impact on the game offensively, where we're able to look at him and say, that is what I want for my franchise quarterback. Even if it's just a glimpse, even if it's just a moment, really just have that kind of game for the Eagles from start to finish, I think would be huge for not only his confidence, but for the confidence of the organization as well. We're going to be finally moving on to, I guess, a very sad topic, and that is the injuries that have come out throughout week 2. But we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, probably the 2 biggest injuries, and that is going to be affecting the first quarterback on our discussion, and that is the 49ers quarterback Trey Lance. Now, currently, he is seen as having a broken ankle, which the average recovery time is around 6 weeks at least, but most likely this broken ankle will be the end of Trey Lance's season. I don't expect him to be coming back before week 8, and if he does, seeing that he is a running quarterback, I don't know how much that ankle should be used. And I think the 49ers will come away very cautious and throwing him in to the mix too early. So I don't see him playing throughout the rest of this season. I hope that my prayers are up for Trey Lance. I hope you have a speedy recovery. But the biggest discussion that comes away from this game is the quarterback situation for the 49ers. Trey Lance is now going to be out for the very least 6 games, potentially more, which means that Jimmy Garoppolo, who has been on your bench thus far, is now coming back into the starting role. Now, what does this mean? I broke this down into the short-term effects and the long-term effects of this Trey Lance injury. In the short term, now we're switching quarterbacks from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo. I do believe that the 49ers now, with Garoppolo, are Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. I don't think that with Trey Lance, at least, that they were going to be Super Bowl contenders. This was Trey Lance's first opportunity being the starting quarterback for an entire season. But with that broken ankle, Jimmy Garoppolo, who is coming off a NFC Championship game appearance and a Super Bowl appearance, has not only the experience, but has the faith from the locker room and the coaching staff and the organization to make another deep playoff run. So I think in the short term, this is a huge positive for them. In the long term, I do think that this does affect the 49ers' future. When they traded up for Trey Lance, they did give up 3 first-round picks alongside some more assets, but giving up those 3 first-round picks in exchange for Trey Lance, and now that he is not able to play another season because of an injury, means that you don't know what Trey Lance is and his production on the turf. Which means that when you give up those 3 first-round picks, you're expecting to be competitive in the future, and you're bargaining your future to be competitive now. Now, when you traded up for Trey Lance, not only were you bargaining to be competitive now, but with a star quarterback in Lance, you're looking to be competitive in the future as well. However, if Lance is not playing on the field and as a coaching staff and as an organization, you're not able to see what Lance is bringing you and what his production may be and what his projection in the future may be. Being confident in re-signing him and to whatever that deal may be is going to be a lot harder to do. In addition to that, you as an organization traded up for Lance so that you can have a star quarterback on a rookie contract. Now that you're missing not only the first and the second year due to not playing, the cap hit that you could have taken advantage of because of that rookie scale contract is going to be a lot harder to use now that Lance is not playing the rest of this season potentially. So I do believe in the long term that this is going to affect the 49ers organization. I don't see Garoppolo being the future quarterback for the Niners in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever the case may be. And Lance is going to have to show something in the next 1 to 2 seasons so, before the 49ers can make an official decision on whether they want to continue with Lance or find another quarterback. However, I think as a 49ers fan, you should be happy now, at least in the moment, where you can worry about the Trey Lance, discussion and whatever his role may be in the future. But I think this injury is a blessing in disguise for 49ers organization. We were able to freely, without, any discussion, any backlash, of bringing Garoppolo back into the starting quarterback position. And hopefully you'll see how deep you can go with Jimmy. If they do go, deeper into the playoffs, it does beg the question on next season whether you want to bring Trey Lance back into the starting quarterback position or not. However, I do think that this brings you back into contention. And after seeing what the Rams did in week 1 and alongside with the 49ers kind of having the Rams number, the 49ers are in that upper echelon of Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. I do think that Jimmy will do great and be a great quarterback for this team. But I think when it comes to the playoffs is where Jimmy is going to have to really focus in on his passing ability and running this offense where they're able to execute in the postseason. Speaking of postseason, we're going to be talking about another quarterback that unfortunately has been injured as well, and is part of a team that I think many were thinking of seeing this team go deep into the playoffs. And that is none other than the Los Angeles Chargers starting quarterback, Justin Herbert. Now, in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, on a big hit as he was throwing the ball, it is reported that he is coming away with a fracture to his rib cartilage. Now, the average recovery time for this as well is around 5 to 6 weeks, depending on how fast that recovery time may be. And if it is to that extent, that is a lot of games that Herbert is going to be missing. Now, let's see, in the immediate future, let's look at what the schedule for the Chargers are going to be. They have the Jags, they have the Texans, and the Browns as their next 3 games. And those are definitely winnable games without Herbert. However, I think it is going to be a lot harder with Keenan Allen having a hamstring injury, and currently, at least what's been reported, he is still signed and reported as questionable for future games as of September 21st. So it's going to be a lot harder for this offense to run as efficiently as it did before. You're bringing in obviously your backup quarterback, but hopefully we can see more carries from Austin Eckler. Hopefully Eckler is able to carry a bigger load offensively, and then for Mike Williams, or if Keenan Allen does come back, for those receivers alongside their tight end with Gerald Everett, they're able to make plays to give their backup quarterback a little bit easier of a time throwing the ball. Does this mean that the Chargers are out of Super Bowl contention? I don't think so. They're very, very early on in the season, and out of those 3 games, at least in the next 3 weeks, you should look to get away with at least 2, maybe 3, all 3 of them being wins. But I wouldn't put too much worry into the playoff concern, at least as of now. Hopefully we'll be able to see a more detailed report on how long that recovery time may be for Justin Herbert. Just like Trey Lance, I really do hope that Justin Herbert will have a speedy recovery. The biggest thing that sucks about sports, and I know that it's a part of the game, but is the injuries that do come with playing a sport. And it's just unfortunate to not be able to see the talent on the field, on the pitch, or be able to see them, make plays, score, and just be an all-around amazing athlete for the NFL. Now, our final discussion is going to be the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars game of Week 2. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this game specifically is the Jaguars come away with a 24-0 win. I don't know about other people, but at least when I did my ranking, before the season, I had the Indianapolis Colts making the playoffs. But seeing as they tied to the Houston Texans and then get shut out against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I do come away from this game with a bit of a concern. Now, I do understand that the Houston game, they were a field goal away that could have been made from Rodrigo Blankenship, and they would be 1-1 at this point. But I think the biggest concern for me is the fact that you are getting shut out by a Jacksonville Jaguars team, which I don't think outside of Jacksonville people thought that they were going to be a playoff team. I don't know if people in Jacksonville thought that they were going to be a playoff team or think that they're going to be a playoff team. So for a majority of people watching the NFL, like Indianapolis Colts, who in my opinion are going to be a playoff team, are completely shut out by a non-playoff team. Now, I've done a little bit of research, and I was very curious on what the problem could possibly be for this team. Now, there could be, there probably most likely are a lot of problems on this Indianapolis Colts roster, but let's start with the starting quarterback in Matt Ryan. Now, in this game, he went 16 of 30 for 195 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 1 fumble, ending the game with 34 QBR. Now, with Matt Ryan, if you watch the game, he looked really, really uncomfortable in the pocket. A lot of pressure was coming off of both edges with Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, and even up the middle. And it was just hard for him to have enough time to throw to his receivers, to his tight ends, to his running backs. And it was just, it just looked like he was just uncomfortable. There wasn't enough oomph on the ball when he was throwing deep. It just looked that he was not in his comfort zone when he was sitting in the pocket. Another player that I thought was going to do a lot better in this game was Jonathan Taylor, where he was only able to come out of this game with 9 carries for 54 yards. 9 carries is not a lot for the rushing leader of last season, and in game one, or at least in week one, he did amazing. And for him to come away with only not even double-digit carries, it just goes to show the tentativeness for them to go and just have Taylor run the ball. Now, I mean, they did fall behind relatively early on in the game, so they were, I guess you could say, forced to throw the ball. But I think if you have a talent like Jonathan Taylor at the running back position, you have to put the ball in his hands and allow him to make plays. Now, if that doesn't work out, well, then as a coaching staff, you did your job. You're putting the ball in your best player's hands. But for you to take that away and not give him the opportunity to go out and execute and make plays on the field, I think is I mean, that was just a misstep by Frank Wright and the Indianapolis Colts coaching staff. Now, in my personal opinion, I think that this is the biggest problem right here that we're going to be talking about, and that is that the Indianapolis Colts allowed 5 sacks. Now, that isn't a ton. It isn't like double-digit sacks in one game, but I think it does shine a light on an underlooked problem for the Colts, at least for me initially, and that is the offensive line's problems. Not that they have bad players. Obviously, they have Quentin Nelson. They have Ryan Kelly. They have good players on that offensive line. However, I say offensive line problems in the sense that they are not playing to the expectations that are set for them. Quentin Nelson is seen as one of the best guards and one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And Ryan Kelly, the same way. But for them to struggle against a Jacksonville Jaguars defensive unit, which are very talented, but for them to struggle this bad, where you have Josh Allen just running in untouched with the I think it was 2 maybe 3 times where people were able to just run up straight up down the middle off of a stunt and just straight to Matt Ryan. I think it just shows that there are cracks that are forming in this offensive line and that need to be shored up throughout this season where they need to communicate, they need to be able to execute in a way that they are able to assist Matt Ryan and having him, buy him more time to throw the ball. I think that the offensive line is a problem that we aren't really discussing a ton, and I think needs to be talked about a little bit more than how it is right now. Obviously, the tools that are at Matt Ryan's disposal, they obviously, you know, they could have, as a receiver, as a tight end, as a running back, you could have done more to get, open. But I think the offensive line should have been able to buy a little bit more time and not to have just free runners that you could have had the opportunity to at least put a hand on them, to at least buy Matt Ryan maybe like half a second of time for him to throw the ball and be a little bit more comfortable in that pocket. Now, with this discussion, I really, really am looking forward to the Colts being able to bounce back in Week 3 alongside the rest of these teams that we have been able to discuss in this episode. I really, really am looking forward to this NFL season. We've had a crazy first 2 weeks, and I hope that you guys as well at home are enjoying the NFL season thus far. At least right now, because the NFL season is in full swing, the next few episodes are going to be focused on the NFL primarily. But if we do have some big news coming out of the NBA, we will discuss those as well. So any basketball listeners, don't leave now, but just wait until we get some more news and we will be discussing some more NBA topics as well. I hope that you have enjoyed this third episode of the Takeaway Podcast. You guys can actually find us on YouTube as well as Google Podcasts now. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Stay positive, stay motivated. Have a nice day. Peace out.